Hello everyone, thank you for joining us wherever you are. I'm Gulo from Jadi PNS, will be the host. Now we are with Oluwadamilola Akintewe, a social activist, writer, and social entrepreneur from Nigeria. Hello, Oluwadamilola, how are you?
Hi, good morning, Gulo, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you too. We are so really excited to have you here to share with us.
Meet myself as well. Thank you.
Mhm. Oluwadamilola, could you please give us a little bit of your background?
Thank you, Gulo. My name is Oluwadamilola. I am a feminist activist from Nigeria, but I am a lawyer in training. So by profession, I am a lawyer. And I also run social impact projects to advance women's rights and youth leadership in Nigeria. For the past 5 years, I have had the pleasure to work with multiple organizations and to even run a social enterprise myself, which is Project Rebirth. And our focus is on resources and mentorship and support for women farmers and women youth in rural communities. But I am sure as we go, I will get more opportunities to talk more about Project Rebirth. I am also a Diana Award recipient, and I was recently recognized by the African Union as a Woman of Impact in 2023. Thank you.
That's amazing. That's totally amazing how young people can achieve not only national but also international stage. What a role model.
Thank you.
And what inspired you to be a social activist and advocate for gender equality?
So I grew up in a very rural community, pretty much on a farming settlement.
Mhm.
And my experience growing up in that community, trying to access education, trying to find scholarship because schools are quite expensive, really opened me to the situations around girls and women's education. But it wasn't until I got to university in 2016
Mhm.
that I had a personal experience on campus where I was attacked on campus. That was 2018, and I tried reporting the incidents and was only met with some sort of victim blaming.
Mhm.
And it showed me how our society is not necessarily safe for women. There are several factors that causes violence against women, and be it at home, be it in school, or even in the workplace. And as a young person, I've always considered myself a leader and a change maker because I don't like talking about a problem. I am rather focused on how can this problem, in quote, become a thing of the past. So I started volunteering with organizations as my own way of giving back. Like I wanted to do something differently. And in 2019, I ran my very first project, which was it was titled Let Girls Lead, and the project was providing mentorship to kids in secondary schools, public secondary schools, because I went to one and I remembered that we did not really have much resources available to us. Some information I would have needed when I was in secondary school that I did not have. So when I was in the university, I decided to bridge that gap and provide that. And subsequently, that passion, it grew into something even bigger for me to start like projects that reduces inequality for people in marginalized communities, just like the one I was born and grew up in. So it's a very personal journey. Yes. Every project I've ever run, from Let Girls Lead to Project Rebirth to a project I called Forbidden Topics, they all had personal touch to them. They were inspired by my lived experiences and a passion to create change. But I also believe that as young people, or even as people in general, we should not wait until we have a personal experience to contribute to development. I believe all we need is empathy and a heart to change the world. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. And we are wondering what programs do you have in Project Rebirth?
Okay, so Project Rebirth is a social enterprise, and we provide mentorship, resources, and trainings to youth and women in marginalized communities such as rural farmlands, and internal displacement camps. The reason for this project was because in 2018, when I was planning on writing my thesis, like I said, I'm a lawyer in training. So I was going to write a thesis around economic empowerment for women. And I came across some statistics, some research that is especially in Nigeria, where I'm from, by the University of Lagos, that shows that over 60 to 65% of poor Nigerians are women. And the statistics further show that it's not because women are lazy, but because there is a systemic limitation to resources. So in some parts of Nigeria, some women cannot inherit properties on the basis of gender. On some parts, for women to access loans, they have to get a male relative to sign for them. And as a woman myself, studying law, then I was flabbergasted. I felt, why is this that? And because I grew up on a farmland where I saw, my mom, my big aunties working on the farm, I know that they were not lazy, they just did not have access to resources. Mm-hmm. And I believe we need to, in our individual way, create a difference and change that. So how I started my journey was, we started with free skill acquisition. That was in 2018 to 2019. We started it as free skill acquisition, connecting women in rural communities who would like to gain a skill but cannot afford it. We started connecting them with organizations who will provide the skill as a form of CSR, corporate social responsibility. So at first, Project Rebirth was a middle agent who connected women to opportunities. And the beautiful thing is, because the skill we started with was sewing. And in Nigeria, if you want to professionally learn sewing, a class, like a training session could cost around $200 to $300, which to an American may not look like big money, but if you exchange it to Naira, it is a lot. So by partnering with fashion houses and professionals to train this women for free, we remove that financial limitation for them getting skills. So that was how we began. And then from 2021 to 2022, I began to see how we can extend our impact and take it a little further, because it's not just about giving somebody a skill. You need to create an enabling environment for them to be able to use that skill, so that the skill can give them a source of income that can help them sustain themselves and their families. So from 2021 to 2022, we created a new track, which is we started fundraising mini support funds for our participants. And so earlier this year, we were able to give out our first and second batch of grants, not grants, mini loans to those women, because most of them, they would not be able to access traditional loans because of collateral, because of the policy. So we give them loans, and they go on to use these loans for so many things. Some are farmers. So right now in Nigeria, it was planting season. So they could buy fertilizer, they could buy seeds, and they could plant crops at the end of the year. And the beautiful thing is, after doing that, they get to pay back the loan based on their business. And aside from that, they now have money to do something substantial. For some of our beneficiaries, they also went into sewing. So they opened the shop and they were able to put the skills into use. And just in general, Project Rebirth is just that organization that is connecting women and young people that had no access to opportunities. So we are opening a gate for people to better improve their lives.
That's inspiring. And what are the challenges and problems on the ground running this project?
So at first, it was resources. There's something I'm very proud of, is that Project Rebirth is 100% youth-led. The entire team, we are a team of 6 people, and we are all under 30. So very young people. And we started in 2018, meaning in 2018, we were younger. And then it was very difficult to gain resources because we had all this passion, all this idea, but it felt like there was no resources to do it because we went from school. Then I was studying for my bachelor's in law. We had to go from campus to just very rural communities. We had to pay for transportation. We had to pay for so many. So that was one of the major issues. But a major issue that I remembered vividly was an ageism culture. So I said earlier that we were predominantly young, obviously young, and we are also we have more women on the team than men. So it was quite difficult to convince elderly people that a bunch of young girls, in quotes, young boys and girls then have an idea that may benefit them. And it was very frustrating, if I'm being sincere, because you feel as a young person, you want to change the world, you want to start with your community, and the community tells you, you're a girl, go sit down or shut up. So that, and also the sexism of being a young woman trying to do something. You are met with so many antagonism on the basis of your gender and on the basis of your age, and it sometimes makes you feel like, is this even worth it? But for me and my team, I am very proud of the fact that we are very passionate about what we do, and we didn't let those challenges pull us back. And 5 years later, we are really making sustainable impact. And I can only say that I've been proud of the journey.
Wow, that's amazing sustainability. And you just mentioned a couple times about your team members. How do you find your team members that fit to the project and how do you maintain them?
Oh, yes. So when when I began the project in 2018, it was a bunch of friends. They were my friends, right? We were just people who wanted to do something differently. So I was doing a full-time law program, but I didn't want to just be the traditional law student who just go to classes and come back home. I feel like I could squeeze myself to give back to my society, which is what I did. So when I created the project, I told it to my friends and they loved it. And they became the very first batch of, you know, people who joined the project. And now we've expanded to external people. The main point in choosing people who join the team is the passion, because it's very hectic work. For instance, our recent project implementation, we had to travel to another state in the northern part of Nigeria. We had to we had to charter a bus to take us there, and it's not easy. The roads are terrible. There is also some sort of insecurity, but we had to go. So it's necessary that you have passion to change the world, and that you believe yourself that you have what it takes to change the world. This is the mentality that we welcome in the team. And we also have a lot of members who have different skills, who contribute and volunteer their skills. We have storytellers, graphic designers, website designers, and all that. We also have project managers who we pool our resources, and it goes a long way.
All right. And then how has this economic empowerment initiative impacted the lives of women in your community?
So I have this story. The last project implementation we went to, we partnered with another organization, MCI Initiative, to donate books, because this is September. September is a new academic session in Nigeria. So in September, kids resume school for a new session. So we went and partnered with our organization, My Child and I Initiative, and we donated books, and donated books to a school on a displacement camp. That was in Abuja, the federal capital. And the head mistress called me aside, myself and the team from the other organization, and she said something. She said, people here, that when they have daughters, they do not see the need for daughters. They feel it's a waste of a child to have daughters. But she said, seeing you two, because we were two women, myself and the the project manager, who is also a young woman like myself. And she said, seeing you two girls going this far to create solutions, she said, I wish I can show you off to those people and let them know that having daughters is not a waste of a child. And that really struck me as a sentence because she's elderly, but she's the headmaster of the school. It just shows to me how our actions goes a long way, because by committing to that community and helping them create solutions, they have a different mentality. Now, I'm sure they will no longer see daughters as waste of children. And that's one of the biggest impacts that I can point to. However, aside from that, one of the benefits is that when our beneficiaries get the support loan and they put it on their farms and their business, they generate income, and the income goes into themselves and their families. For instance, they are able to put their kids back in school. Another thing, which is very important, is that they can fight gendered violence, gendered financial violence, and they can make better decisions about their lives, about so many things. They can also fight period poverty because, for example, sanitary products are very expensive and so many young women cannot afford it. So by our Project Rebirth implementation, now that they have a source of income, they can purchase sanitary products, menstrual products, and no longer have to go through the dehumanizing process of menstruating without pads. And that is for the women, for the young people, because we're not just women, we also focus on young people who are also like men. For them, there is a decline in crime rate. We have a saying that an idle hand is the devil's workshop. So by giving them some sort of trainings, mentorship, and resources for them to get something doing, the crime rate declines. And the people in the community can sleep with their two eyes closed. So when you ask me for numeric impact, we've been able to help 190 women so far, but that is just a number. The indirect impact is much more than that. It transcends just how many people have you impacted. It's transcending into how has the impact improved their lives, their children access to education, a safer community, and a better life for them.
Oh, that's amazing. And then you started Forbidden Topics. Please tell us more about it.
Okay, so Forbidden Topics is we are a feminist collective with just a community of young women, young feminists, not just women. Recently, we've had young men join the community, which is amazing. And our goal is to use storytelling to amplify people's voices on social injustice. So the story began during the pandemic lockdown. You know, everybody was online, nobody was moving, there was no movement. And I was sharing some stories on my social media and I got attacked. I got attacked for it.
Oh.
And I feel there is a silence, a culture of silence surrounding women's rights. For example, in Nigeria, where I'm from, people don't really talk about issues that are pertaining to women's rights. For example, if you talk about rape, they'll tell you you're turning it into a gender war, which is absurd because rape is violence.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about rape, you shouldn't seek to silence us. So I noticed that culture of silence. And when I was attacked on campus in 2018, it also showed me a real life situation of how, you know, violence affects women and how our community silences victims. So I was like, I've had enough. I'm not doing this again. So I created Forbidden Topics and we started getting people to share their stories and we post it online because we believe when we share our stories, we gain power to fight against injustices. And I also know that silence is very dangerous because silence empowers perpetrators. They know that you won't say anything. And with that confidence, they can do as they wish. So we use storytelling. And this year, we ran a project on technology facilitated gender-based violence. And this project was supported by Defenders and Safe Sisters. So which we had a training for university students, young activists, advocates, and professionals on how to protect themselves online and how to advocate against violence that is caused online, technology facilitated violence. And the beautiful thing is, after the training, the fellows, but we had 16 fellows, and it was a fellowship called She Village Fellowship. The fellows went on to replicate the project in their schools, in their communities. We focused on mostly on schools, and we had fellows from almost all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, from Lagos to the Federal Capital Territory to Akwa Ibom to Enugu to Zaria to Nasarawa to Ondo to Oyo State to Osun State. We touched every political zone. And this is one of the major impacts because right now we've empowered young people to fight against violence online and also to create a campus-based revolution against campus-based gender violence. That is what we do at Forbidden Topics. And as a young person, I look forward to even the bigger impact we can create on the long run.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned that storytelling is the main, the main kind of like business and also the projects that Provident Topics doing. Can you please tell us more about some of the most impactful stories or moments that have emerged from this initiative?
So yes, one of the major stories that we did that went viral was in 2020. So it was a story on the post post rape trauma. So our protagonist was a young lady who was abused by a relative, and for over a decade she could not say anything. So when she came to our Forbidden Topics community, she said she has distanced herself from our abusers and she wants to share her story so that other people can see the pattern and they can also get themselves out of the situation and ask for help. We shared the story and it went viral, and some of the relatives were attacking me online for doing that. But it just shows that, people may not forget, people may not remember what they read. They may not remember what people said to them, but they will remember how a particular story made them feel. And aside from sharing story, the goal is to inspire a call to action. So we don't just share a story about how this person was raped and now she's doing better. We share a story in the line of how can you as a person support someone who it was in that situation? How can you be a bystander, an active bystander? So aside from sharing story, we also share what an individual can do, like a call to action for every person reading that story. So don't say, oh my God, I am not the legislature, I'm not the lawmaking body, I am not the governor or the president. Don't say that. If you give your ears, if you listen to someone share their story, if you speak up against violence, this is how we create a better world. So I see it as a collaborative action. You do your part, I do my part. So that's why we use storytelling, because it informs people of what to do to ensure that that crime does not persist.
Wow, that's amazing. And Oluwadamilola, gender-based violence has been a deeply entrenched issue in many societies. So what strategies has Forbidden Topics employed to encourage women to share their experiences and break the silence surrounding these issues?
So thank you for that question. One of the things that we're doing for Forbidden Topics is to create safe spaces. So our community is a feminist community, and you will never be victim blamed. You will never be abused. We create an environment for people to understand that, wait, what happened to you was not your fault, and you shouldn't feel bad or guilty for your experiences. So we create safe spaces, and then we empower people with resources to share their story online, which is through the storytelling program. One of the projects we ran recently, the fellowship, also trained people on digital security so that they can protect themselves from online gender-based violence, like hacking, revenge porn, stalking, identity theft, So we trained them on how to do this. And aside from training them, they also made a commitment to take it further, to go beyond by also training people in their communities, in their religious place of worship, in their schools as well. So these are the strategies that we've employed. We also write articles on these social issues, and we get them published on major channels. One of our articles has been published on the University of Bristol School of Education, another one on One Campaign, and we got an article posted by Women Making a Difference as well. So we get the stories and this content out there to enhance a mindset change, so that people can start seeing gender-based violence as a everybody issue and not a women-only issue. Because the truth is, gender-based violence is not just a women. It's not only particular to women, even though women occupy a larger percentage of the victim. Statistics have shown that men can also be abused. So if we're saying, it's a woman's problem, let the women handle it, we are saying that we are not ready for change. So one of the things that we're really committed to in Forbidden Topics right now is to enhance a all lands on approach. So our implementation is not just focused to women. Yes, we prioritize women, but we're also open to getting other people to see the need, to speak up, to stand up, and to advocate against violence in every form. Thank you.
All right. And looking ahead, what are your long-term goals and aspirations for Project Rebirth, Forbidden Topics, and other social projects?
So my long-term goal as an individual is I want to work in policy because of my background in law. I'm very passionate about policy. I want to work around policy because I feel when we have good policies that translate, it positively affects the lives of millions or even billions. So that is my own personal goal, and I want to do that. But for Project Rebirth, I look forward to we expanding our impact, not just now, but like 10 years in the making. In the next 10 years, I really want the organization to extend its impact beyond Nigeria to West Africa or even Africa as a whole. And aside from that, I look forward to us collaborating with so many youth-led organizations around the world so that we can replicate this impact. For instance, we already have a well-defined project. And if there is an organization in India who is also passionate about economic empowerment, we could give them our book on how to run this project and they can create it in India. And I don't have to go to India for that to happen. So this cross-continental and intergenerational partnership is what I am looking forward to. And that's why as a young leader, I am always excited about meeting other young people who are also committed about social impact, social justice. Because the truth is, we are the ones that will change the world. And we have to start it either from our community. And aside from starting it, we also need to see that collaboration is important. As one, there's so much you can do as one person. But if you're 1,000, you can do so much more.
Wow. And how do you envision the future of gender equality advocacy in Nigeria and beyond?
So, as an activist myself, I really hope that in the next 10 years, the conversation around gender equality has changed and that people have a mindset reorientation. If there's one thing I've noticed in the Nigerian scene is that a lot of people think gender equality is posing a threat to men. So if you say, I want to create a project to support women, they say, oh, you're trying to take opportunities from men, which is not it. Because gender equality is not a pie. It's not, if women get more rights, it does not mean men get less right and get less rights. It just shows that we need to create a better society that supports women. So what I hope to see in Nigeria is to see more young men seeing the need to be gender equality advocates, because it doesn't make you lesser. It doesn't take away your rights. And that's why recently our project will be focusing on not just women, but also men, to get them on board and to raise a new generation of children who do not see women as second tier, who do not feel they are entitled to some things or some benefit just because of their gender. So that is the mindset shift that I hope to see. Because until we see that, until we have that, until every person begin to see gender equality as their personal duty, we're just going to be making the same point over and over and over again. And I feel that is counterproductive.
And lastly, many young people aspire to create positive change in their community, but may face challenges or doubts. What advice do you have for young activists and entrepreneurs who want to make a difference?
Well, thank you so much. So I love this question because I get asked this question a lot. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, Damilola, how were you able to pull this project that gets funded, get this recognition?" When we got the Diana Award, I was also at one award last year. But I tell young people that a lot are waiting for them to have like 1 million US dollars before they do something. I used to feel like that. I used to feel like, oh my God, I'm not a philanthropist, that I'm not a very rich person. What can I do? But the truth is, you can do something. And you don't need to have an organization for you to create impact as a young person. For me personally, in some few years, I'm going to hand over the leadership of Project Rebirth to another person. I'm going to hand over the leadership to another group of people so that they can also have their own opportunities as leadership while I go on to pursue my own personal ambitions. And it just shows that I do not seek to evolve my entire identity as a founder. It's not necessary. So as a young person, you don't need to be a founder or a co-founder. Yes, it's cool if you are, but if you have skills, you can always go to established organizations and volunteer. Even as a founder of an organization, I volunteer with UNICEF Nigeria. So right now, I am an influencer for UNICEF Nigeria, even though I have my own fully fledged social enterprise. And that is because I understand the importance of shared goals. I saw UNICEF as an organization that have my own line of thinking, and I want to be in the system. And so I went there, and I am currently volunteering for UNICEF Nigeria. So as a young person, I know one of the things I struggled with was resources. So if the resources are not available, you can start with volunteering. And when you get some little resources, you can start small. So you don't have to wait until you have 1 million impact, right? If the first impact is one person, and you can always go back to it, the next one you do could be two people. So take it one step at a time. And if you're in my shoe, you can also surround yourself with young, like-minded persons, because it's best if we work together with this. The Bible says, can two work together except they agree? So if you connect, liaise yourself with other young people who have the same passion, you can pool resources and create a project. And because then the goal is to create impact, right? So don't wait until you have $1 million US dollars. Don't wait until you have like so thousand following on Instagram. Don't wait until you have all the money. You can start by volunteering for already established organizations. You can even if you're a professional. For instance, if you're a professional, let's say you're a lawyer and you want to create impact, you can volunteer your time and knowledge as a lawyer. For instance, you can work with organizations that work around, justice. You can volunteer for them. If you're a financial person, you can volunteer with organizations that teach economic knowledge, economic and financial knowledge. So you can make impact irrespective of the field you're in. If you're a scientist, you can mentor a young person in STEM. So you don't really have to create an NGO or found an NGO for you to make impact. There's so many ways to do it. You just have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and look.
Wow, that's awesome. This is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Oluwadamilola, for sharing your inspiring story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's collaborate to make this world into a better place. I'm Gulo from JDPNS. Thank you and see you again.
See you again. Bye.